My name's host Eric, and I'm here to say welcome to Talking with Famous People. People. So I started watching this channel called Growing Up Scientology. It's an interesting channel. This guy, as his channel name might indicate, is somebody who grew up in Scientology, you know, and now is no longer in it and is a critic of Scientology. I like him a lot. I think he's an ISFJ, probably. That's my guess as far as his personality type. He's very likable, and he has very interesting inside information about Scientology and the linkages between Scientologists and celebrities in Hollywood and stuff, you know. Stop smoking. What did it say? I'm going to have to pull it up on the big screen. Let's see. I can't, or put on my glasses, one of the two. Stop smoking, Dinu. Hello, Moldova. Hello from California, United States. So, hi, Mean Bird. So, he just put up a video, and I subscribed to his channel because I started, basically, with this Diddy stuff, I kind of drew connections between, like Diddy and Ashton Kutcher and Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson is a Scientologist. And it turns out, a surprising amount of people engaged in all this Diddy stuff have Scientology links. So, California is very, it very much depends where you are in California. Where I am in California, it's absolutely lovely. So wait a second. What is this content you make? Is that the name of your band? Stop Smoking, Dinu? I think it's a band, right? Huh. You're obviously a very successful Moldavian musician. Interesting. Cool. Ashton Kutcher in hiding. He's guilty as F. He totally is guilty as F. Well, it looks like you make music though, right? That's cool. Hi, England. Welcome to California, USA. Hi, cat down the road. Oh, you watch AA, Ron? It's really interesting. Deaf Boy Klaus says, this discussion sounds interesting, but I'm driving, and I just wanted to let you know I'm excited as heck for the World Series tomorrow. Well, you know what? I won't even be disappointed, Deaf Boy Klaus, if the Yankees win. I'll be rooting for the Dodgers, obviously, but it won't bother me if the Yankees win because one person in this house is going to have their team win. So that's good enough for me. And you know what? If the Yankees win, then you and Rachel both are happy, whereas I'm really the only Dodger fan around here, so it wouldn't bother me that much if the Yankees win. I'm happy to see like Aaron Judge versus Shohei Ohtani, etc. Okay. Hi, JD. You remember me? It's Dill. Hi, Dill. We are between Romania and Ukraine. You speak Romanian. Oh, I did not know that. Moldova, Romania. Hi, Finland. Welcome to California, United States. So anyway, Aaron made this video where he apologized for not making good enough content or something. It's like, okay. In fact, I left him a comment, but I was just so bothered by it that I had to make a video too. You don't apologize unless you do something wrong, okay? It's not being accountable to say you're sorry because your camera quality isn't high enough, or you stopped making long form videos. You should only apologize when you do something actually wrong. Otherwise, you're just cheapening the whole thing, right? But I get it. You were raised in a way that made it difficult for you to understand where how moral calculations ought to be. Oh, you think he was joking? I mean, I didn't take it as a joke. I didn't watch the whole thing though, but I totally didn't take it as a joke. I mean, nothing he said indicated that it was a joke. Are you sure he was joking? We actually made a referendum to enter the European Union 3 days ago. We voted yes with 50.4%. What do you think? I don't think it's a good idea, personally. I don't think you want to hand over some of your national sovereignty to some other body, right? It's just ill advised. There's no reason why somebody more centralized than you can make better decisions than you can about meow. Yes, they promise certain economic advantages, and yes, you could share a currency. And I guess well, I didn't watch the whole thing. I mean, okay, then if it wasn't a mistake in terms of his apology and making an apology for something you shouldn't be sorry for, then it was a mistake in assuming people are going to watch the whole fucking thing. People don't have that long of an attention span. I mean, I watched a fair amount of it, right? Like, so he really took his time getting around to convey that it was a joke. And that's just asking too much indulgence from your audience. I mean, that's an artistic mistake, not a decision-making mistake, right? Not a moral calculation mistake. So it's less bad, it's less significant, but neither of them are bad, but it's less significant. It's still, now, hey, Ron, you know what? I'm still going to watch your content and enjoy it. But I'm going to shake my head because, intentionally or not, you tricked me. And I don't like being tricked. I don't try to trick people, and I don't like being tricked. No, I don't unfortunately have my music formally published. Like, I have to, you could do it with I just haven't done it. And I in part because who knows, maybe I want to, this is the problem with being an NE Dahmer. Oh God. Whoever's staying at that house right now has some loud child. What was I talking about? I don't know. Lost my train of thought. Thanks, loud child. Oh, Gregory and Skies, right? Yeah, I haven't done that. I always think, well, maybe I'll make a different recording of it, or a better recording of it, or have somebody who actually knows what they're doing produce it for me. But maybe that never will happen, so I should just release it as is, It seems to be well liked by a lot of people, so maybe I should just release it. Formally. Then it would be on things like Spotify, and I guess I don't know how to do that stuff, but I'm assuming that if you formally publish it, just automatically gets into their list of things or something. I don't know. What am I, some kind of copyright lawyer? All right, so hey Ron, fuck you for tricking me. I don't appreciate that. I do appreciate your ISFJ, just every time the same intro. Don't listen to people who tell you to change it up. Keep it the same. Don't be like me. Be like you, not like me. That's why you have shit tons of subscribers and I don't. That's why you have, well, right now, maybe because I'm talking about you, I have 59 viewers here, but that's very, very unusual. I'm generally in the 10 to 20 range. So anyway, fuck you for tricking me. But I get it, you were taking your time conveying that it was a joke. Now I feel like a big dummy. And it's all thanks to you tricking me. So that guy's channel is really interesting. The insider information on Scientology is crazy because, like, he's naming names. Like, this person's name in Scientology has this connection to this Hollywood figure and shit like that, which you don't really get. You don't have anybody else with that much inside information conveying worthwhile news about what's going on right now. And I wish I had found him back when the Danny Masterson case happened. I was really happy, obviously, that Danny Masterson was imprisoned. I did not, though, at first, back at the time, I don't think I was very aware of, if at all, this Scientology connection. I just heard the story about this actor, who was in a show that I used to watch. So it was relevant to me. And that I heard about the horrible things he did. But I didn't really know about the Scientology part, right? It turns out that Scientology has their fingers very much in this horrible Diddy pie, though maybe not directly with Diddy. It's like Diddy himself isn't a Scientologist, but and apparently Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis are not themselves Scientologists, but they surround themselves with Scientologists. They were at Scientology weddings and stuff. I wonder what it is, how you get married in Scientology. Do you do some kind of, you read out of Dianetics? That would be funny. I don't, what does it say in Dianetics anyway? Psychologists are bad. Psych drugs are bad. I mean, what an insane position. If it weren't for psych drugs, Rachel would she'd be in an institution. She'd be institutionalized with bipolar mania, Scientologists just do so many shrooms that they turn into robots. I kind of would like to, buy out herself, I kind of would like to, you feel like Aaron is an ENTJ or INTJ? He seems like an ISFJ to me. He's very likable, And the use of this, of a show's beginning that he thinks funny because it has his name in it and puts it at the beginning of everything. That's textbook ISFJ or ISTJ potentially, I watched a YouTube documentary on Old Dirty Bastard yesterday. Did you know that he was only 35 years old when he died? It's kind of surprising to me, drug overdose. So he was not even old when he was an old dirty bastard. How strange. Hey, dirty, baby, I got your money, don't you know? INTJs don't freak out about tech issues. That sounds like an ISFJ thing. That sounds like TE Polar, INTJs don't have problems with tech issues. He doesn't seem FE Polar at all to me. 35 is so young, right? Because he was old, because his name was Old Dirty Bastard. I don't know if I remember really seeing a video with him, or maybe I did see something with him, but he seemed old to me, right? Well over 35 when that song came out. Hey, dirty, baby, I got your money, don't you worry. That song was, an excellent track. It's the only thing that I know by him at all, but he was in the Wu-Tang Clan originally. I didn't think much of the Wu-Tang Clan, frankly. It just wasn't very good, right? The problem with it wasn't anything specific, except it didn't pop. Nothing the Wu-Tang Clan ever made really snapped. But that song by ODB, that song's a classic hit. Got ridiculous lyrics. I don't got a problem with you fucking me, but I got a little problem with you not fucking me. What ridiculous lyrics. He just seems so ridiculous. But he was actually seemed like also quite a nice guy, really. Um, in the interviews of him, it's clear that he likes drugs a lot. So, you know, but he also seemed to have uh like a healthy relationship with women in real life as opposed to what you hear about with like all this Diddy stuff is horrific. It's unbelievably horrific. It's the kind of shit that people used to tell me about, and I'd be like, oh, come on. Yeah, right. I mean, look, those rich famous people are just regular people like you and me. Why would they have these weird, like, satanic rituals where they have orgies and sacrificial children and stuff? That's obviously garbage. No, apparently it's not. Insanely, ridiculously, apparently it's not, right? Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Cash rules everything around me. Get the money, dollar bills, y'all. Dollar bills, y'all is pretty iconic. I still see them, and sometimes dollar bills, y'all, myself. So, since I still every once in a while say it, it must be pretty iconic. So, anyway, Scientology should not have tax exemption. From everything I've heard about it, there's no way in fucking hell that cult should have tax exemption, which they do. Did I see the interview Aaron did with Jordan Peterson? No. He should interview me. All I've ever seen are his live streams, which are not really like my live streams at all. I typically read the chat and respond to what the chat says, and the topic varies, etc. But but his live streams, he seems to have a particular like article or something he wants to go over and talk about the connections to Scientology, or something in the media will reference Scientology, or some Scientologist will do something like that. He's got like ongoing news about the ongoing fight against Scientology, which is understandably ongoing because think about it, they have that big ass fucking blue church down in LA. I used to go by that thing frequently, not that frequently because I didn't live in that part of LA, but plenty of times in my life because especially towards the end of my dad's life, because his doctor was down in Hollywood where that Scientology church is. They obviously have a lot of money. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to build that big ass blue church. Sometimes when you drive by there, you see like it's kind of like a Mormon look, like black pants and a white shirt and a thin black tie. Guys walking purposefully from some kind of living thing and over to the blue building. Listen, celebrities, why are you somehow oddly interested in Scientology of all things? What in the world? You're a celebrity. You don't even need to have any religion. But if you have to have one, why not just have a regular religion? Why do you want to become Scientologist of all things? I mean, surely you're aware it's at best it's dorky, right? Like, why don't you just become a Jehovah's Witness? Jehovah's Witnesses sound like they're a cult too. If you're not in Jehovah's Witnesses, then people who are in Jehovah's Witnesses can't hang out with you. So if your family not Jehovah's Witnesses, then you have to separate from them. Same as Scientology, Tax exemptions for religious organizations was likely lobbied by Scientology in the first place. No, they had a whole bunch of court cases, right? It wasn't lobbied, it was litigated. So they won the court cases. They had a sufficient amount of of money put into their legal efforts that they were able to win those court cases. And, you know, I think the court was probably right based on what they knew at the time. But what I would say is that like Scientology operates in a very for-profit way, I think, in a lot of fashions. Certainly, their organizational structure is more like a corporation than it is like a church, seems to me. So I'm not exactly sure what legal language the court would use to carve out an exemption for cults, but it needs to figure this out, right? Because cults should not be able to get tax exemption. It's not the IRS, it's the courts. They might have blackmailed judges and stuff, that's possible, but they didn't. It's not because they have members in the IRS. That's not how they got tax exemption. That may be how individual Scientologists avoid paying taxes or something. I don't know, but it's not how the Church of Scientology got tax exemption. Sure, it's possible that they bribed, blackmailed, or otherwise influenced people in the criminal justice system, but it would have to be at the judge level, really, to accomplish anything. Scientology. Why do you even have science in your name? I mean, I agree with you, Food Aaron. It's a difficult question, and that's why the courts made the ruling that they did, because it's difficult to distinguish between religion and cult. I think the activating distinction that we should use as a rule for legal determination should be whether or not the religion advocates that people who are adhering to the religion separate from their families if their families don't agree with the religion, separate from their friends and families if their friends and family don't agree with the religion. That should be the standard, right? But I don't know if that's going to be an easy standard to enforce or whatever. I'm not sure what the legal arguments would be, because I haven't really looked into that particular area of law very much. I am very knowledgeable about matters of law, but I haven't looked into that very much. Like, if it were some constitutional matter, I'd know a great deal about it. But the fact that the First Amendment guarantees the freedom of religion, I don't think is relevant in determining whether or not a specific organization qualifies for tax exemption. So it's not really a constitutional issue. Christianity says that, though, that Christians shouldn't spend any time with or be friends with or have family members who aren't Christian. That if in fact, I mean, I don't feel that way at all. I'm Christian. Like, I don't know if my daughter's Christian or not, but if she's not, obviously I don't give a fuck. So, and also, I think decentralization is kind of critical. If you have two centrally organized, a leader of a religion, and the branches that are away from decentralization are too beholden to a single central authority, like a pope or something, then that gets a little risky. But, you know, I'm not saying Catholicism doesn't qualify as a religion. But at the same time, Catholics, I've been friends with Catholics before, and I'm not Catholic. They do say you shouldn't marry a non-Catholic if you want to get married in the Catholic Church, but, well, the thing is, Dino X44, that's where the centralization issue comes in. Because if it's true that religion being a matter of faith means that that every interpretation of these religious texts is equally valid, because it doesn't really matter what the words of the text say, right? So I guess we'd have to draw a distinction between how a given religion is actually practiced versus what a religious text says. Because as a matter of fact, you've got communities of Christians who are very conservative, like the Amish, very fundamentalist, like the Amish. And you've got Christians who are like me, who are very secular in general. Should the Amish be getting a tax exemption? I don't really think so. I mean, I'm not sure churches need to get tax exemptions at all. Just because you have a freedom to practice religion doesn't mean churches have a right to not be taxed. Especially if they have a large amount of assets and are bringing in a lot of money, then it's like, why is it that individuals should have to pay taxes on their income, but the Church of Scientology does not? I mean, yeah, it makes it harder to open and maintain a church, but the Constitution doesn't guarantee easy church maintaining. What's the definition of a cult? Well, I think the determining line should be whether or not it prevents you from spending time with your family if they're not part of the same belief system, right? To the extent that a belief system says all people outside of this belief system are bad influences, suppressive people, etc. If you've got a category for apostates, then I'm very concerned. Ask ChatGPT. Okay, you go ahead and ask ChatGPT. So I don't know what the definition of a cult is, but I think if what we need is an operationalized definition, which means something that we check for that if it meets that standard, then it qualifies as a cult. It might have to meet more than one checkbox, depending on how we want to define it. But we need to remember that the purpose of a definition is to create such a checkbox. And so our definition needs to be phrased and framed accordingly. And we also need to remember that we define terms for a purpose. It's not like we are slaves to what we read in the dictionary, the definition. The idea of defining is taught wrong to students. Defining is something you do in the process of argumentation. It's not something you access via a dictionary. The only reason we should use dictionary definitions is if there are competing definitions for the same term that preclude us from using that term effectively and doing argumentational parsing. Oh my God, is that a black widow? I wonder what kind of, it looks like it might be dead though, fortunately. But I don't know what kind of spider this is. Do you guys see it? I mean, there are different kinds of cults, right? Like Scientology is not a cult of personality. It's not a cult that revolves around David Muscovy. Is that his name? Although he does rule with an iron fist, it's not about him. He's not the Messiah, right? Well, I mean, it's true that generative AI is prone to making mistakes, email anthrax, but it's worthwhile validating with something else, I guess. The thing is, if we remember that definitions are things people do rather than things that are, then we are able to find a definition that's meaningful. So, control over members. Cult leaders often exercise a high degree of influence or control over their lives, actions, thoughts and actions of their followers. The thing is, Dino X44, unfortunately, that's not really a operational definition. Cults usually hold beliefs or engage in practices that are outside the mainstream of society or traditional religions. That's not an operational definition. We need something that operates as a checkbox, that if a religion does this, it qualifies as a cult. Otherwise, our definitions aren't meaningful. They're just a standard, right? Then cults become like the definition of pornography by that one judge who says, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it, right? We don't want that kind of definition. We want a good definition. One that actually lets us make a determination about whether something qualifies as a cult. I'm proposing that the best definition is any belief system that tries to separate you from your friends and family because they don't believe in it. Other stuff says Scientology is now trying to dissociate itself from L. Ron Hubbard's writing. Well, I've not heard anything like that on A.A. Ron's channel, but maybe it's true. A few things should be incorporated into the definition. Two things I can think of is, number one, secret knowledge, and two, a lead figure with special authority. Well, I mean, but then the Catholic Church would qualify as a cult, and I don't think that as most Catholics practice their religion, it qualifies as a cult. So that's why I think the definition needs to focus on something specific that's toxic, right? It's like always toxic. It's always a bad idea to exclude your friends and family until they agree with you about meow, right? That's always a bad idea. B.G. Newman says Scientology is a big load of crap, bro. I don't believe it. I don't doubt that it is a big load of crap. I don't really know exactly what it says, but I mean, obviously, the idea that psychiatric drugs are bad is insane. It saves many people's lives. Yeah, Roman Catholics have a secret knowledge area of the Vatican where only Pope and cardinals can go into and read these ancient important texts and stuff. Absolutely, they do. I mean, no, it's not the case, email in fact, that all churches are cults. So, just as it's the case that not everything that shows cleavage is pornography. Just because some woman looks sexy in a movie, that doesn't mean that movie is therefore pornography. And similarly with cults, cults are always harmful to the actual well-being of the members of the cult. Whether except for maybe people who are at the top, and it's bad for them too, unless you think being wicked is good for somebody. It's not always about one person, Dino X44, although that's the kind of cult we most often think about. The kind of cult where it's like David Koresh cult, right? But Heaven's Gate cult wasn't about that guy. It was about this belief that aliens take us away to someplace. I don't know. And what's another cult we can think of? Oh, that one where Jim Jones, where everybody drank the Kool-Aid. Again, I think it was an apocalyptic kind of cult, not really about that guy, but I could be wrong about that one. And Jehovah's Witnesses is not about any specific guy, but it does have the quality that I talked about. It does tell you that you can't hang out with your friends and family until they become Jehovah's Witnesses. Scientology is that as well. Isolating its members and invoking consequences on them if they try to leave. Yeah. Is college worth it? Probably not. Depends what you're studying. If you want to be a doctor, then you're probably still going to have to go to college and go to medical school. If you want to be a lawyer, you're probably going to have to go to college and go to law school and pass the bar and stuff. Even if those are antiquated ways of getting credentialed in those fields, that's the mechanism that's in place and will be for the foreseeable future. But if you look at it that way, the churches and such are always structured. There's always a possibility of corruption, and therefore there's always a possibility of one person benefiting over the crowd. Well, that's why we can't use that as a standard to make the distinction. So, yes, it's the case that only one person in any Christian church around here can have their job be pastor. There's only enough financial support to carry one pastor as a full-time like job, if that, right? The person might not even have another job. So it is the case that people who form communities of faith together don't necessarily all have equal roles within that community. That's not what's necessary. What's necessary is that that belief system doesn't become comprehensive of their whole life, right? That they don't make everything in the world about that one belief system, because that's not a good way to have healthy citizens in a free society, right? A free and civil society understands the need to engage with other people in the world and to have in your life people of various diverse backgrounds and beliefs. So by that standard, Scientology definitely qualifies as a cult. So then one characteristic is inappropriate loyalty to their leaders. I mean, if you want to say that, it's inappropriate loyalty to their leaders, but whether you want to define it as that or as full throttle adherence to a belief system that the leaders are advocating, are they conforming to the leaders' expectations, or are they conforming to the letter of what they're being told as like scripture for whatever the cult is? You could make the argument that anytime anybody learns anything from anybody, that they're being indoctrinated. But that's not the case, and we need to make distinctions that allow us to separate actual instances of inappropriate kinds of indoctrination from genuine instances of learning. And the best way to determine that is the source of learning that I'm learning from, is it rejecting other sources? So you might say, when it comes to personality type, I have a cultish approach, because I'm saying when it comes to personality type, if you read other people's shit about cognitive functions, learn from other people in general, you're going to be getting wrong information. But that's because it's also the case that if you try to learn about quantum mechanics from Deepak Chopra, you're getting wrong information. Atheism is a belief system? Yeah, I agree. Royston says hi. Hi, Royston. I'm fine. Thank you, Royston. A new hype IV 4. A new hype 4. Do you view atheism as a belief system, or rather should it be seen more like a disbelief system? Atheism is an active belief that God does not exist. It's also possible to just not take a position on it, and that's not being agnostic, right? So you could take the position that God exists, that God doesn't exist, that you don't know, but you could also not take any position on it at all. So the first three are beliefs. The last one is not. But they're not really belief systems anyway. What they are they're position statements. They're affirmations of a set of position statements. So atheism has its set of arguments that it affirms. It has a set of arguments that it ascribes to its opponent that it negates. Christians, especially those who think that they can justify their faith with reason, which is insane, of course, because it's implicitly a contradiction. Faith is belief in the absence of evidence or in the face of contrary evidence. So accordingly, you cannot prove it. But Christians who think you can and should try to have their set of arguments that they affirm, their set of arguments they ascribe to atheists that they negate. And agnostics are basically negationary towards both atheists and believers, right? Disbelief is when you know there's no ambiguity of falsehood, right? I don't believe that. Well, I mean, there's different ways you could use the term, right? You could say, I don't believe that. Yeah. In which case, it just says, I don't affirm this statement. You could say, I disbelieve in, yeah. In which case, you say, I actively negate that statement. So Those are different claims to make. I don't affirm something is different than I negate something. So, well, I mean, Alec T, I don't think that's necessarily the case, that in cults you believe in the leaders, not in the ideals, because I'm trying to find an operational definition of cult that includes things like Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses, which are not leader focused. In any religion, you're going to follow the leaders. That's why you're going. If I go to church, I go there because I want to hear the sermon, because I believe that guy understands something about religion and will help me to understand it better or something, right? So the thing is, it's not the case that following the leader's guidance is implicitly it may be a necessary condition to qualify as a cult, but it's not a sufficient condition. And we're looking for things that are both necessary and sufficient. They don't have to be sufficient in isolation. It could be that it must have these two qualities to qualify as necessary and sufficient. But those need to be things that we can articulate. Like it's a clear distinction. Does it do this or does it not? Have you looked at the BITE model of cult classification? No, I haven't looked into cult classification at all. This is the first conversation really I've ever had about it, because I just started watching this guy Aaron's channel, and he definitely thinks Scientology is a cult, and I agree with him from what I've learned about Scientology from him and other sources before, but I didn't really look very deeply into it before, I just heard some funny things they believe, like in Xenu and stuff, But I didn't know they were such a controlling bunch of horror people. It is true that there are some sociopaths at the top who are guiding this process, right? They want all the under people to be disempowered so that they can control them. That is the case, but we can't use that desire of those people as a standard to evaluate things. So I can't use that as a distinction to determine whether or not something's a cult, because I can't know their subjective motivations. Behavior, information, thought, emotion. Aaron, KNLKNICOMS. Aaron is a YouTuber. His name's Aaron, but he calls himself Aaron, and he does a channel called Growing Up Scientology. He grew up as a Scientologist and accordingly has lots of interesting information about it. Thought focuses on the psychological techniques used by such groups to shape beliefs and attitudes, suppressing critical thinking and promoting conformity. Emotion explore. Okay, well, the thing is, this conversation began with that Scientology should not get a tax exemption. But how can the government make a distinction between things that are cults and deny them a tax exemption, and things that are not cults and allow them to have that tax exemption? I think we should get rid of the tax exemption for churches entirely, because that's not part of the guarantee of the First Amendment. There's nothing about tax exemption in there. That's interpretive overreach by the courts. Regardless, if they are going to have a tax exemption for genuine religions, it would be desirable to eliminate the tax exemption for things that are actually cults, such as Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult because they say if you aren't a member of Jehovah's Witnesses, basically you can't leave the religion without abandoning your family if you grew up in it, So KNL NICOMS agrees about getting rid of the tax exemption for churches. I agree too. There's no reason to have it at all. But regarding making sure that actual cults don't enjoy a tax exemption, especially ones that operate like a big corporation like Scientology does, if we were going to accept the existing precedent that real churches should get a tax exemption, what is the standard we could use in court to distinguish between things that are cults and things that are religions? And that means we need something. We could do a standard, so we could leave it up to the judges with something like what Alex articulating here, which is the BITE model of cults. Then you're setting up a standard, and so the judge looks at all the various things that are in the standard and says, does this qualify according to the standard or not, using his discretion. Or you can have a rule. What I'm suggesting is we're better off with a rule, because standards are what got us here in the first place. Things that aren't real tend to be adjudicated by standards. Like, ADHD gets prescribed according to a standard, not a rule. They have a bunch of check boxes, and you check enough of them off, you got ADHD. That's not how real things that are wrong with people get diagnosed, right? So, granted, for mental health things, there's unavoidably a lot of self-reporting in the data. There's no getting away from that. But my wife has bipolar mania. It's in remission. She's on drugs to make it go away. But I was with her before it was properly treated, and she had a psychotic break. And I can tell you that's real in so much more compelling a way. In the same sense that schizophrenia is real in so much more compelling a way. And then these ideas of ADHD and autism spectrum and shit like that everybody gets diagnosed with so they can say, I'm neurodivergent, or so they can get speed, which is a fine reason to get diagnosed with it. Nobody's disputing that. If you want to get diagnosed ADHD so you can get Adderall, that's obviously a good idea. This is my kitty. His name is Trouble, and he's Trouble because, for example, he makes me watch him eat. He doesn't like to eat unless I'm watching. He enjoys being admired. Yes, you're doing a fantastic job of eating. Oh my goodness, I'm so impressed with your kitty mouth and your chewing powers. Yes. So anyway, I'm a little bit mad at AA Ron for tricking me, because apparently his apology was a joke, but it took him a long time, I guess, to get there, because I watched quite a bit of it, and it didn't seem like he was joking to me. I know I watched quite a bit of it because while I was playing, I was crafting a comment that took me a while to write. It wasn't a long comment, but it took me some time to get it cleaned up and as short as I could. And ever heard that expression? Sorry, this would have been shorter, but I didn't have enough time. That's how I always feel about writing. You can buy a supplement called Tong that if you drink 5 scoops, it makes you Chinese. I don't need that. I'm fluidly transracial. My race changes all the time. I'm Chinese frequently. I think I was Chinese about 3 weeks ago. It's been a while, but every time I am Chinese, obviously I get karate, which I retain after I'm Chinese, but it's not as good. Oh, sure, I know what you're saying. You're saying karate is Japanese, not Chinese. Hey, I'm the Chinaman. I should know. So anyway, I'm going to tell Wages what you did here, AA Ron. Who's Wages? I don't know. Trouble is trouble because he's a confirmed Scientologist. He's a Scientologist in good standing. I heard from AA Ron, I was shocked to hear this, that Danny Masterson is still a Scientologist in good standing, despite having been convicted of forcible rape and sentenced to 30 years in prison. Go figure. I guess that's fine in Scientology. But he also said, and I'm curious about this, could this possibly be true? He said, Danny Masterson doesn't think he deserves to be in prison for what he did, and that he's somehow a victim in all this. Do you think that could possibly be true? He's aware of what he did. Could he really believe that doesn't deserve a prison sentence? His house had a whole bunch of hidden cameras in it, with a whole viewing control room. If you look at the listing on his house, the real estate listing on his house when they sold his house back years ago, I don't know how long ago. Unless that thing I saw was bullshit, but it seemed to be legit. But regardless, how could he possibly, what would his reasoning be that he doesn't deserve to be in prison? I would get it if he said, he doesn't want to pay the price for his bad deeds. I get that. That makes sense. But does he actually not believe he did anything? He doesn't deserve to be in prison either, according to him. Does he really believe that? How could he possibly believe that? How could either, again, I get that they believe that they don't want to get punished for their wrongdoings, but surely they don't believe those are not punishable wrongdoings. I mean, surely they are aware that rape, for example, is against the law. If nothing else, even if they deny the wickedness of it, surely they're aware that it's against the law. So, I don't know. Maybe, I guess, but you have to be so fucked up to do this shit in the first place that I guess it's less shocking that they believe they didn't do anything wrong than that they did it at all. Yeah, okay. PP, I'd be interested to find out what he did believe would be a good reason to incarcerate someone. Yeah, I know, right? No, it's not when you have enough money to scrub the law and make it look like you didn't do anything wrong. Well, he had enough money and he had powerful friends in the industry and etc. He got Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis to write letters of support to the judge for him. But he still was convicted because, after all, he did the crime. That's how it should go. It's not always the case that people can corrupt the criminal justice process with money or fame. It too often is, and that's very unfortunate, but not always and should never be the case. And even if it is the case that sometimes they can corrupt it, that doesn't mean we should stop trying to pursue them for these wrongdoings and pursue them as hard as we can. Yes, they're going to have the best legal teams possible, but how much fucking money do we spend on the criminal justice system and all these prosecutors we have? It's not like the feds do a poor job of prosecuting the cases that they prosecute. They have a 98% conviction rate. They don't prosecute unless they already know they're going to win. Just like America doesn't fight in any battles that it doesn't already know that's going to win. Scientology is looking at getting prison exemption after they get tax exemption. Yeah, probably. I'm sure that Danny Masterson would love to be somehow, pardoned for his wicked deeds, but that's not going to happen because, fortunately, the world seems to have gotten a little more sane about what it's going to tolerate, what people can get away with. It's like, sexual crimes are easiest to get away with because if they happen in private, you can always claim they're consensual provided the person's of age, right? And that's very unfortunate. But I think the world is shifting now to realize that victims understand this as well. And that it takes a lot of courage to come out and say, I've been victimized in this way by this person. And that when they do say that, we should err on the side of believing them. That doesn't mean we should presume somebody's guilty, but it means that especially victims who show signs of actually having been victimized, like several of the people in the Diddy case did, and they go to the cops and stuff, something needs to be done about that, right? These people are going to victimize again. Aaron was saying Danny's lawyers keep delaying the appeal process because they are controlled by Miscavige, who doesn't want any more secrets about Scientology getting out. Yeah, I got that part. I did understand that part, that he's delaying his own appeals because basically, well, there are linkages to other lawsuits that would use information that might come out in the appeal against other parties that Scientology is protecting. So I do get that. And whether or not, I'm not sure that Danny Masterson is particularly committed emotionally to the appeal process because he probably knows that he's not going to win the appeal. So he's probably figuring, I'll stay in the good graces of the people with power that I know and hope that somewhere before 30 years from now, I can extricate myself out of the situation. I think I don't know how fucking objective he can be about anything because obviously he can't be objective about his own wrongdoing, but he should be objective enough to recognize that he's not going to win on appeal. He did that crime. He was convicted fair and square and by a jury of his peers and sentenced appropriately. I don't want to praise Allah. Thank you very much. 1336 fun. I don't want to praise Allah. Okay. Allah. Allah and Muhammad can both go fuck themselves. Xenu can also go fuck himself. And who else? A lot of other people. Zoroaster, Zeus, they can all go fuck themselves. Except for my God. My God is fine. My God is correct, but all these other gods are wrong. That's why I believe in my God. The true one true God. Namely, God, spoken in English, okay? Not in Arabic or whatever. I'm just jesting. I'm just joking with you. You know, I'm a secularist. I am a Christian. I self-identify as one, but I'm fundamentally a secularist in the sense that all of my argumentation, reasoning, etc., is reason-based. I recognize my practicing of faith as just that, believing in the absence of evidence or in the face of contrary evidence, and not a kind of practice that you can expect others to, there's nothing to agree with or disagree with, right? Prayer is not argumentation. I'll praise all y'all, okay? I praise you all, and I praise me, I praise the universe, I praise the God I believe in, and I also praise Paddy the Baddy, MMA fighter, for his excellent retort. So Paddy the Baddy was getting into a MMA fight with somebody, and before the fight, they have this press conference, and his opponent said, he was trying to portray Paddy the Baddy as a clown. So he said, I'm going to just be business. I can take care of business, knock him out, and then I'll twerk over him. And Paddy the Baddy said in reply, oh no, I'm going to knock him out, and then I'm going to teabag him like it's Modern Warfare 2. I just thought, what a great expression. I'm going to teabag him like it's Modern Warfare 2. Now, I've never played Modern Warfare 2, but I'm assuming there is no actual teabagging in that game. So I like expressions like that, where it doesn't make any sense. Like, unless there is teabagging in Modern Warfare 2, but it's like when in Punk Rock Girl, the song, the Dead Milkmen they put a Beach Boys song on the jukebox. It was California Dreaming, and so I started screaming on such a winter's day. Except California Dreaming is not a Beach Boys song. See what I'm saying? You crouch up and down on them to teabag in MW2. Oh, you can teabag in Modern Warfare 2. Thoughts on the morality of having children, host Ostrich? I think it's fine to have children. I don't hate Muslims at all. I don't hate Muslims at all, okay? I do think that Islam, as it's practiced in the majority of so-called modern Muslim countries, is guilty of a lot of pre-Enlightenment kind of framing and is not conducive to a free and civil society as it's practiced. But I recognize that we cannot evaluate things based on their holy texts, because most people don't practice in conformity with some ancient book, even if they say they believe in it or whatever. We have to evaluate individuals as individuals. No individual gets evaluated as a member of their group by me. I don't care how Muslim you are. I'm never going to evaluate you on that metric. If you come in and say, praise Allah, I'm going to evaluate you on the metric of, I don't appreciate proselytizing. It seems presumptuous, and shut the fuck up, right? I don't go tell you to praise Jesus. Well, you know what? I'm just evaluating how things are practiced in general and making the critical distinction that we can never evaluate anybody as an individual based on their membership of a group. We have to evaluate them as an individual. We don't know who they are just because they associate with Meow Group, even if we don't like Meow Group, even if it is a cult, for example. I don't get to condemn Joe because he's in Scientology unless I get to condemn Joe for his words or his behavior. If I have specific bad acts I can condemn him for, fine. If I see him saying lies and stuff and condemn him for that, fine. But not condemn him just for his group membership. Not condemn him for his nature either. So in a healthy, loving relationship, sometimes partners need to critique each other or correct or, say, I'm unhappy about something, right? But one should only critique behavior or actions. I mean, behavior or words. So if I'm upset at my wife because she ate my leftovers, then I can critique her for eating my leftovers. Rachel, I told you I wanted to eat that, and you ate it before I could get to it. What's up? What the fuck? That's fine. But I can't say, oh my God, you're so selfish. Because then I'm saying there's something wrong with you, not there's something wrong with what you did that deviates from your normal goodness. So everybody should be, I wasn't hating you at all, Karmic Death. Somebody else came in here and said, praise Allah. I wasn't talking to you at all. I didn't even know you were Muslim. You may have said so before, but I totally forgot about it. I didn't even know you were here. I'm not talking about you at all, or I'm not even hating on Islam. I'm just saying that person who came in here and said, praise Allah, I said, no, because I don't like proselytizing. Somebody comes in and says, praise Jesus, I might be I might have less antipathy towards it because it's proselytizing my own faith system. But regardless, I don't like that either. Just shut the fuck up with your religious shit, We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about important things that matter. Namely, whatever I feel like talking about. Yeah, but I was thinking about this other holy book by some guy who apparently got dumped by a chick called Natalie and started a religion that revolves around hating her. Is that a religion, though? Can you have a religion around hating somebody? I hate Diddy, but it's not my religion. In fact, I really try to limit the amount of content I consume about that case because it's so fucking dark and depressing. And some of these things sometimes, it makes my soul ache for days afterwards because you hear the story and then you visualize what it's talking about, and it's just it's a psychic injury, kind of. Can we talk about Ja Rule? Sure. Is Ja Rule the one who participated in the Fire Festival that never happened with this island and tents and bands and stuff that scammer ENFJ guy put together? I think Ja Rule was associated with that. I don't know anything really about Ja Rule, but Father Sean Combs, if you have something to say about Ja Rule, I'm willing to hear it. Fire Fest. Yeah, Fire Fest. With a Y. And the guy spent all the money on it, going and partying on the island by himself and his friend with supermodels and using that to make an advertisement for the Fire Festival rather than any of the money on actually putting together the Fire Festival. Brother Jesus Christ loves you. Repent. I don't want to repent. Shut the fuck up. You repent. Why don't you spend more time repenting yourself and less time telling other people to repent? How about that? Repent for your proselytizing. Shame on you, says God and Jesus. God and Jesus are both like, oh my God. Can that easy 1, 2, 3 easy guy just shut the fuck up? He is making us look bad. Nobody wants to be represented by somebody like you who goes around telling other people to repent. So here, repent this, motherfucker. I don't want to change all my pants right now. I don't want to repants. What's wrong with my existing pants? Sure, they're not modesty pants. I have short pants on. Yeah, I know. My legs will... And seeing my legs is... Well, that's why normally people ask me to wear a burqa. Because it inflames their lustful ways. Look at these legs. Ooh la la. If I were hitchhiking, I'd just put my leg out like this and hitchhike, and then someone would be sure to stop. That's why I was a member of the Rockettes, because I'm such a good kicker. Like this. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. All right. So, have we covered all the important things? No, there's another important topic I wanted to get to today, which was my original topic was going to be, until I saw that AA Ron apology when I went to start a live stream, and then I watched that, and then I changed the title of the live stream and made it about something else. But my original title was going to be about confounding variables. The original title was going to be confounding variables in uh, confounding variables like in Modern Warfare 2. I was going to leave the teabagging part out. Confounding variables like in Modern Warfare 2. So Money came in here the other day and talked to me about the Simpsons paradox, which I thought had something to do with the Simpsons, but it doesn't. It's made by a mathematician who is named after a mathematician whose last name is Simpson. Anyhow, and how what the Simpson paradox basically says is, depending on how data is presented, like for example, take two baseball players. One baseball player might have the higher batting average in each of 3 seasons, but the other baseball player might have a higher average if you add them all together. That might seem impossible, right? But it has to do with the amount of at-bats. So it's like, if in season 1, the player 2 has a lower average than player 1 by a little bit, but a high average, and a lot of at-bats, a lot more at-bats, and then fewer at-bats in season 2 and 3 than the other guy, then in that case, you very well might have a circumstance where player A beats player B in all 3 seasons, but player B beats player A overall in average, right? Because you have different amounts of things in each season. So what the engine of it is confounding variables. First of all, I wanted to say that I read something there. There's some mathematician slash philosopher type guy who's saying that, in fact, this doesn't represent a fallacy of some sort. It just represents positioning data in different ways. Of course, it represents a fallacy because it's the answer to, like, why is this bullshit? Because it's exploiting Simpson's paradox to present a conclusion that's false. That's contrary to what the data actually shows. I'm here for time travel talk. He will drop that bottle. I'm not dropping any bottle. What bottle are you talking about? Oh, I did drop that bottle. Oh, right. So is it fine to have kids? I mean, I have a kid. I think in general, you'd be wise to limit the amount of children you have unless you have a lot of resources. But I don't think there's an answer to whether it's ethical for you to have kids or not, because whether or not you have a kid is not necessarily your choice. So both partners might be actively avoiding impregnating the woman, but she might get pregnant anyway. She might say be against abortion or something, and all of a sudden she's got a kid. We can't say it's immoral to have children, because the only thing you could say is that it's immoral to plan to have children. Have you seen the new transgender horror film coming out for Halloween? It's called They Them. Is that a joke? I mean, I haven't heard of it, no. We are constantly traveling in time, one present at a time. I mean, it's true that time moves forward, that things that we do become things that we've done. But that's not what people mean by time traveling, right? What they mean is that, can we go to a different time in history than now while everybody else stays where they are? And the answer is no. I mean, you could sort of travel into the future by traveling away from Earth and do a loop back to Earth at very high speeds. When you get back here, like, all your loved ones will be super old and dead, and you'll be not that much older. That you can do that. You can time travel like that. So from Earth's perspective, from your perspective, you've gone for a year at high speed. In Earth's perspective, it's been 100 years have passed. So it's like you're traveling 99 years into the future over the course of 1 year. but you can't travel backwards in time. I mean, you could, but again, it's from the perspective of the parties, right? So the people on Earth, when you come back from your looping space adventure, from their perspective, they traveled back in time to in your timeline, because from their perspective, you should be dead or very old too. You should be in your 90s now too. Let's pretend it's like 50 years instead of 100, right? But instead, they've traveled back in time to 50 years ago when they saw you when you were young and you still look the same way. So in that regard, you can travel back in time, but there's no time travel possible except via the perspective of individuals, because that's how reality is defined. The reason we can't travel on a historical timeline is because that's a metaphysical construct. It doesn't actually exist. Some people say, well, according to quantum mechanics, information is like energy. It's never destroyed, it's just repurposed or something. Or that, you could go back in time because on a quantum level, there's a record of all the things that have happened. That doesn't make any sense at all because, of course, it can't keep a record of agents' subjectivities in any way that can be conveyed except via the experience of an agent experiencing that same subjectivity. So it's not like it's information that is communicable, right? It might be conveyable to like an identical physical object of me that you could, in theory, imprint in there an experience I've already had, and I experience it as though it's brand new. In theory, that might be possible, I guess, but certainly it won't be. Most of the information is non-communicable. It's just experienceable, right? There's high resolution information, which is experience, and there's low resolution information, which is communication. Communication is necessarily limited to communicating that which is communicable. It doesn't have to be experienced to understand, to be understood. So I can communicate to you that I have a stomach ache, but I can't communicate to you exactly what it feels like. You have to just assume that it's similar to a stomach ache you've had, right? Because we have similar experiences, we can communicate about them. But you'll never know how sad I am about. You'll never get to experience the experience of me, like going back and finding that my dog had been killed by ran over by a car. I can tell you about it. You can imagine how sad you would be, etc. But you can't have that horrible experience that I had. I don't think anybody's being hateful here, Karmic Debt. Nobody's being hateful. I don't see anybody being hateful. I typically am pretty rigorous about enforcing shit that I think is unacceptable, inappropriate discourse. Defamation, like people who just are here to, like troll, like I'm going to lie I'm going to lie in an emotionally provocative way. I usually eliminate those people pretty quick, unless they're just trying to provoke me. And, or any kind of hate speech, I'll get rid of those people right away. So I don't really think anybody's hating on anybody here, really. There's not a lot going on in the chat. How much cocaine have you done in your lifetime? I do an 8-ball a day. That's a lot of coke. You must be rich. I have done some coke in my life, a little bit, but not a lot. I don't like coke. I'd rather have speed than coke any day. I am thinking about maybe eating the rest of these mushrooms today. That might be a good idea. Oh, wait, I took a Wellbutrin, though. I might not trip very much. Apparently, Wellbutrin dampens down psychedelic experiences. Maybe I'll take it tomorrow, then. Hi, Liliana. How are you? Apparently, my phone says that you are scheduled to go live tonight, I believe. I remember seeing that and going, oh, look at that. What a scheduler you are. I never schedule shit. I just start lecturing when I feel like it. And I stop when I feel like it. Because I'm not trying to help anybody, but I'm just trying to do what I feel like. I don't want to help you figure out when my live stream is, because then I have to go and do it at that time. I don't want to be beholden to a schedule like that. You're feeling better. I did hear that you wanted a break. I didn't really get that you were feeling sick, but Sorry, I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. Sorry to hear you were feeling sick. All right, cool. Got some music? Sounds good. Maybe I'll stop by. Probably, decent chance I will, because I'm live streaming on the earlier side today. Probably just stream for another hour or two and then probably stop. And then I'll probably go back to consider streaming again later this evening. And that's when I'll see that you were live. And I'll say, oh, I'll just go over there, go on her panel. I'm not a huge fan of panels in general, but your panel space is pretty pleasant. The reason I don't love panels, of course, is because I have so much to say that I have to continually prioritize being socially graceful and not talking too much. So, and also I don't really feel like panels are purposed to resolve any questions. They're just purposed to continue mewing about them without any resolution. Drama? Well, I don't mind the drama. It's kind of interesting. Some of it is like, so this, to hear that, like, to learn and sort of get my feet in a little bit the edges of, that there's these communities of panel people. It's not just tailors. There are lots of panels, and they often know each other. Like different panels from different channels know each other and stuff. So that's interesting. You just eat Mongolian cheese and ignore? Well, you don't need to. There's nothing for you to ignore. Nobody's saying anything bad to you. Just because some people don't like Islam or don't like religion in general or don't like proselytizing, that's not an attack on you. I mean, I used to call myself agnostic, I guess, but more or less be atheist, just not very interested in arguing about it. But if asked, I would have said, yeah, of course religion's bad. It's all bad. Like, it's not good to be irrational. But now I feel a little differently. I recognize the fact that sometimes our subjectivities require a magical thinking frame to allow us to engage in them in a meaning capacity. And that's one of several things that faith-based behavior called prayer does. It's not a bad thing. But regardless, I was never antagonistic to people who were religious. Unlike my parents, my dad really hated Christianity. He was such an ardent atheist. My mom was also an atheist, but didn't really care that much. And my mom, till the very end of her life, like one of the last things that she still knew in her brain, when she could barely talk at all or anything, had to change it and stuff, was that she hated Donald Trump. She'd see a picture of him and her face would get all mad and she'd hit the paper. Like, she hated Donald Trump so much that even in her at the very end of dementia, the last thing she kept grasp of was how much she hated Donald Trump. Pretty ridiculous. Pretty funny, right? I mean, I get it. Trump was very divisive and is very divisive. I really hated him too. I hate him a little less now because it's just like, well, I mean, even the horrible fucking nightmare that is Donald Trump has got to be better than Kamala Harris. Because, I mean, Kamala Harris's policy objectives are completely batshit crazy. Like, she wants to double federal tax revenue? That's completely batshit crazy. That would just destroy the economy. I mean, it's so fucking stupid. I can't even conceive of anything stupider, right? They have $4 trillion already. Why does the federal government need more than $4 trillion when they're a government supposedly of enumerated powers? Oh, well, that's where I was going with that. Thank you for getting me back on track here, a new hype for. So, confounding variables. There's a study from a long time ago that really disrupted the aristocratic kind of worldview. And what it showed was that when guessing the weight of a given cow, let's say, that in any instance over multiple independent trials that no individual will be better than the average of the group. And this was seen as very disruptive to aristocratic worldviews and elitist worldviews, because they're saying, no, Lord meow meow meow, you can't guess better than the average of the group how heavy that cow is. But the thing is, the conclusions that were generalized to mean that therefore the group always knows best. If you get the composite perspective, that's going to be better than an individual's perspective. In reality, it's only because that study was done without confounding variables. So if instead of one cow, they had two cows that were approximately the same weight and said, which one is heavier? But they made one cow very clean and one cow very dirty. That would be a confounding variable. People might think the dirty cow is heavier. They might think the clean cow is heavier. Regardless, whether they think it's heavier or not might be impacted by that variable. If it isn't impacted by that variable, then that variable is not confounding, but it could be confounding, right? So the thing is, the problem with democracy in general is that it's predicated on the notion that the composite perspective of people is better at determining the weight of the cow. But there are way too many confounding variables in this context. So in fact, the majority of people should absolutely not vote, are not qualified to vote, we have no reason to believe that their perspective on things is correct. Instead, what we need is to launch a campaign that says, instead of get out there and vote, say, don't vote. Please don't vote unless you really understand why you are qualified to vote and why. I'm not saying we should limit the right to vote or something. In fact, I don't think that felons should be prohibited from voting, and I think everybody should be able to vote if they're a citizen of the country, regardless. But I don't think they should, right? I think they should be able to, but not that they should. So we need to, it's not a matter of changing voting access. It's a matter of changing the public narrative about voting. That voting is an important thing that people do, like jury duty. And that if you're going to do it, you better take it seriously. Oh my God. You poor guy, Dobby. You have a penis that's measured in centimeters. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Because nobody wants metric penis. Nobody. Okay. Not me, not anybody. I think God for me is very personal, and I never mentioned. And nobody ever attacked you. Kermit Dead? Nobody ever said, Kermit Dead, you and your beliefs are wrong or something. Nobody ever said that. So I don't know what you're being so defensive about. We're not talking to you specifically about anything. I am now, but I mean, and just to clarify for you that nobody's saying anything to you. Forbes article on tax proposals says it's seriously misleading to say that Kamala Harris plans to double taxes. I mean, it's true that I haven't verified that claim, but it was the citation given to me on that claim was New York Times, which seems to be left-leaning itself. So if in fact it's misleading, then fine, but there should be any candidate that wants to raise taxes, nobody should ever vote for that candidate. Raise taxes on anybody, right? It's not a good idea to try to steal more money from the richest 1% or something, because first of all, it's impossible. The tax code is so convoluted, so complicated, that any changes in tax code, well, I mean, a good tax guy, that just alters the behavior. It doesn't result in more taxes, right? Let's say you want to tax capital gains more. It just means that people hold on to shit longer, and the economy slows and investment slows, and wealth and prosperity are limited, right? It doesn't mean that they keep taking those gains at the same rate and then just pay more taxes on them. Rich people are very good at avoiding paying taxes because the progressive tax code is the most regressive fucking thing you could possibly imagine. So we need a flat tax, national sales tax, and set it at whatever you want to set it to get you your $4 trillion. Fine. Fine. You already have $4 trillion a year. That's way too much, but fine. But if you're suggesting any raising of taxes, you need to go to the fucking insane asylum. The federal government does not need more tax revenue. For God's fucking sake. There can hardly be any body of government I can conceive of that is less qualified to spend money than the federal government. For fuck's sake, right? It's like you've got to be crazy to think that raising taxes is a good idea. Like, what are you going to do with this tax money that's going to help people, supposedly? Like social programs of some kind? We already can't pay for Medicare, Social Security's failing, etc. But you want to raise more taxes, even though we've already overextended ourselves. We need to cut spending. If you think that we don't have enough tax dollars to go around, then we need to cut spending on some shit. Obviously, you need to use the tax dollars you already have, 4 trillion of them, to do all the things you need to do. And if you can't do all the things that you want to do, then you need to not do some of those things. That's just sanity, right? It's like, can you imagine if any household ran their business like the federal government runs it, in constant debt, servicing debt? How much money are we spending servicing debt? Why don't we pay down that? That would free up some money. Instead, they want to get more tax revenue. I guarantee you that there's not going to be a binding linkage between that tax revenue coming in and being spent on something sensible. After all, if it's Kamala Harris as president, I have not heard a single indication that woman can tell anything that's relevant from anything that's irrelevant, that she cares at all about what she says. Everything she says is either just inflammatory political bullshit or just populism of the worst sort, right? She does not care at all about the truth of her words. She's a wicked person. Trump, you might say, doesn't care about truth at all. He's also deluded, right? But Trump at least believes in his bullshit. Kamala Harris doesn't believe in anything. She can't, because to believe in something, to affirm something, to have principles means to be honest in your dealings with the American people. Trump is wrong about shit tons of stuff, and he's a fucking psychopath about a lot of things. But he's not lying. He's just an idiot. He's a complete idiot. He's like the most retarded person who's ever been president. Kamala Harris may be less retarded, but you don't want somebody who's more effective with less intuition than Donald Trump as the president. She has no intuition at all. She just cannot distinguish a significant meaning from an insignificant meaning. She doesn't care about the words she says. When she says she believes that every woman in the country has a constitutional right to an abortion, she cannot possibly believe that. The Constitution doesn't say that. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled that. And if she believes that there's something in the Constitution and in her interpretation justifies that conclusion, then she needs to state what that is, not just make the claim as though we're factually true when it's factually untrue. I mean, for fuck's sake, if she wants to say, I believe we should have this right, then she needs to say that. She can't just make the claim that it exists currently and expect people not to call her a fucking liar. What a fucking tard, liar, horrible bitch. Like, don't lie. I was so happy when Biden stepped down because I was like, thank God we'll finally have a regular human being that I can vote for. And then Kamala Harris opened her fucking mouth. Oh my God. That nightmarishly non-intuitive fucking liar. What a scumbag. What a scumbag. Trump's a scumbag too, don't get me wrong. But a prosecutor prosecuted a bunch of drug crimes and put people in prison for no reason and tried to put them in prison as much as possible and threatened overcharging them in order to exploit plea bargains out of them. Who wants this fucking shitbag as president? Nobody wants a shitbag like that as president. I don't want either of these fucking shitbags. Nobody should vote for anybody. Like, we have picked the absolute worst possible people to be candidates for president for the last God knows how many years. That's why next election cycle, I'm running for president. And I am going to bring the rhetorical lumber to these fucking tards. I am not opposed to people who are mentally retarded. I think they should have healthy, happy lives like anybody else. They have rights like anybody else. But we should not elect them president. So anyway, when I run for president, the truth will be spoken at all times because I am a truth speaker. The correct truth will be spoken at all times because I am almost always correct. When I'm not, I will immediately correct myself and concede the point. You're not going to hear bullshit out of my mouth. I'm not going to just talk out of my ass like I know something when I don't. When I don't know something, I'll say I don't know. Like a sane person would. That's how you get to be correct, is knowing when you don't know something. I am going to run. I will take advantage of every money-saving tax loophole I can. Wouldn't you? We shouldn't punish taxpayers, no matter how, I don't know what that is, rich, maybe? They are. Instead, enact better laws. Yeah. The fact that, it's like, can you imagine if the government said, you're like, okay, here, government, we're going to give you these tax dollars. You're in charge of the roads and the army and, interstate roads and the army and these other few things. And they're like, okay, how much money do we have to spend on doing these things? $100 million. And they come back and we go, oh, we need more money. Well, what happened to the money we gave you? Oh, we spent it on this other thing. You're supposed to do this, this, and this. I know, but we don't have enough money for it. Okay, fine. Now you have $200 million. Okay, you can do that thing you wanted to do. Now you do the work. You come back. Oh, it wasn't enough. Well, why? Well, we spent it on this other shit. Okay. At some point, you have to stop giving them more money, right? They have $4 trillion fucking dollars. If they cannot do their enumerated powers with $4 trillion, then they are every single person in Washington, D.C. is completely retarded. Just demand that the people who represent us actually, do the job that they're brought in to do in the most efficient way possible, in the best interest of the United States of America, long-term, short-term, and in all ways. Let's stop being myopic and focusing on short-term outcomes at the expense of the integrity of a system that preserves our prosperity continually and on the long-term frame, We have to be smart, not dogmatic, not ideological. So I'm not an ideologue about small government, for example. I'm not a libertarian because I don't believe that any ideology can cascade down to inform us about everything. We need to be principled pragmatists. We should never do something in a way that's illegitimate because that's just getting people off the hook. Like, no, come back and figure out how to accomplish this in a legitimate way. We're not going to do it in an illegitimate way. If you can't figure out how to do it in a legitimate way, then we'll wait until somebody smarter who can figure out how to do it in a legitimate way comes around until we do it, if it in fact needs to be done. And if nobody can figure out a legitimate way to do it, then it doesn't need to be done. And shouldn't be done. But most importantly, we need to acknowledge that we're operating in society as it is, and we want to continue to encourage it in those ways in which society continues to evolve for the better. And we want to discourage ways that society evolves for the worse. We want to do what we can to ensure an economy and a society that affords sufficient opportunity for every individual to be prosperous and live a good life. But that also that recognizes that you're going to have a lot of unequal outcomes and that you can't have a better system by trying to control outcomes. It just doesn't ever work, right? It doesn't work to tax the richest people because it doesn't help the poorest people get richer. So all you do is you just, instead of there being the privileged and the unprivileged, you just have a bunch of people who are unprivileged with a few fucking centralization autocrats at the top. We don't want that. The problem with groceries costing so much and the economy being in a shit hole because of inflation and people barely being able to get by, if that, that problem cannot be solved by taking more money from rich people. Because number one, the only way it could even conceivably be solved by that would be if you took that money from the rich people and you cut a check to every person in the country and directly gave them that cash. Any attempt to avoid that, you run afoul of the many harms and consequences and implicit difficulties of government spending. You can't give in-kind benefits without disrupting markets. You can't give really any kind of means-tested shit without infantilizing the population you're trying to help and without incentivizing poverty. There's a lot of actually complicated policy wall kind of shit that informs us about what we should and shouldn't do, because not because of some desired outcome, but because of whether it works or not. Let's see here. Yeah, the government is addicted to tax dollars, and we need to intervene. Misappropriation of public funds is a criminal matter. Yeah, well, sure. But it's not misappropriation if you spend it on your pet program that turns out to be garbage. It's just a waste of money. And that's one of the challenges that we have with a deliberative body like Congress or the Senate, is that in order to get anything accomplished, you need to do politicking. You need to agree to go along with meow if they'll go along with meow, right? But that quality is a good thing because it prevents things from getting passed. We want our deliberative bodies only to pass those things that have been most fully and successfully deliberated and are actually good for the country. We should always default to non-action because action invariably has unintended consequences as well as intended ones. Well, that was quite a little rant. Left me a little winded. But I'm a ranter. I like to rant. And so that's what I do. Let's pull some bong rips, shall we? Who wants to pull bong rips with me? This first bong rip will go to, let's see, Overcomer. Overcomer, you get the first bong rip. I don't know if you're still here, but if you are, you get this bong rip. I'm going to transubstantiate it from my lungs to your brain. Congratulations. I put this on here to prevent resin from getting on my lips. No, I mean, I was describing, say, let's say food stamps, right? Food stamps is a relatively effective program, but it is still means tested and accordingly has certain harms of means testing, but it doesn't qualify as misappropriation of funds. I don't know what you're referring to specifically as I said that you thought was misappropriation, but like dumb legislation does not qualify. Thanks, Unlucky Charm. I'm not going to take any blinkers because I don't have any vapes, but I will pull some bong rips. That one was for Overcomer. Karmic Debt, you want a bong rip too? Well, I was saying, actually, Jonathan Earl, food stamps are actually a pretty effective program, but they do involve means testing, which means they incentivize poverty. And that's the problem with anything means tested. In other words, you have to stay poor enough to get them to continue to get them. Still, at least food stamps avoid in-kind benefits because they function as cash at supermarkets or for groceries, So that's not a problem. Do they increase revenue for the federal government? No, absolutely not. They're an expense, right? The federal government has to spend money to make what's essentially poor people money for food. But they have to buy that poor people money with food with real money. So obviously it doesn't generate revenue. There's a lot of multiplicative bullshit arguments that people who are in favor of tax and spend policies make, like, when government money spent, it has a multiplicative effect. It's completely bullshit. In the best case scenario, there's like 5 or 10% spoilage in a dream world, right? It's really more like 25%. spending money earmarked for one thing on something else is misappropriation. Okay, well, I don't know if I gave an example that does that. If I did, then my mistake is that example was misappropriation, not poorly spent money. So, but misappropriation is one of the factors in spoilage, right? So, whenever you have government spending, you have about a 25% spoilage rate because of a bunch of factors like the cost of the bureaucracy to collect the taxes, the costs of running, like, you know, just all the salaries and bureaucracies involved with implementing a given spending program. In the best case scenario, you have the government just cutting checks to Americans. That has the least amount of spoilage, but that represents very infrequent occasions of like economic stimulus packages and stuff. And the thing is, earmarking things for certain things, I mean, that's all well and good, but people can amend those bills later and redivert those funds if they do it by process of legislature. So I don't know. You tasted food stamps once, they tasted gross. Fair enough. You're not supposed to eat them, actually, a new hype before. I understand how you'd be confused about that, but you're actually supposed to use them to buy other food. So, like, I want to be real. I want to become president for 4 years because I want to help the country. And I feel like I'm the only person who really understands things well enough to do the job. I really feel that way. I mean, you might call it delusional to think that I am uniquely qualified to be president of the United States. But I would point out that I don't want to be president of the United States. I'm willing to, and I feel like I have to because I'm a patriot and a citizen who cares for his country, And I see the disastrously bad kind of political discourse that passes for such these days, and the kind of, sickeningly evil persuasion methods used in political advertising and so forth. And I just think we need to fix this shit, right? Really? Okay, yeah. That is one of those bullshit multiplicative arguments. In fact, a dollar spent by a food stamp in the economy is worth $1 to the grocery store, right? Now, granted, that means it's another dollar the person could spend on something else, but it also means they need to stay poor to continue to receive that $211 a month, right? And I'm not saying food stamps are bad. You're referring to government spending when you mention misappropriation. Well, that's a misuse of the term misappropriation. Like, just because the government spends money doesn't mean they're misappropriating it. Even if they spend it for things that are not constitutionally within their jurisdiction, it still doesn't qualify as misappropriation. That's when individuals spend money for their own benefit, like for example, if a coach collects a bunch of money to take her kids on the trip on a competition trip, but then instead of spending it on that, spends it on a trip to Hawaii for herself, that's misappropriation. I focus on my happiness. It comes without giving proper reason. Happiness does come without giving proper reason, but I find that when I'm feeling happy, I do have a reason. So, like last night, I was feeling happy, and the reason was I knew I needed to get a lot of sleep, and I was happy that I could get up whatever time today. I didn't have anything going on today. I usually don't. I feel very fortunate, And I don't always feel that way, even though I always am that way. I'm always fortunate. I'm always lucky and privileged, but I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I feel depressed or self-loathing. I feel a lot of self-loathing, or I did until I started taking this Wellbutrin. And you might say, well, why, Eric? Well, because one of the things I kind of figured out on this Wellbutrin is that I tend to say I hate myself anytime I feel something sad, even if it has nothing to do with me. So I think what I'm doing is kind of conflating every negative emotion into self-loathing into words. Like, I've somehow decided that sad or bad feelings are a reason to hate myself because either I'm responsible for them or I didn't prevent myself from feeling it in some way, or it just is representative of how I'm not living properly or something. I don't know. At some point I conflated those things, I guess. Because I found myself I once again read something very dark and unpleasant in this Diddy stuff, and it was haunting me like somebody had kicked me in the shin, right? Like aching and periodically I'd note the pain and go, ow. But instead of saying ow, I'd say I hate myself. But it wasn't, I had nothing at all to do with it, right? I had zero things to do with that. I just read about it. Am I hating myself because I read about that article? Read that article? Maybe I shouldn't have read that article, but it's not a reason to hate myself. I'm just bad with my feelings. I have a poor relationship with subjectivities. Feeling something sad sounds like my wife. Yeah, I was talking about government spending, but I don't know what your point is about misappropriation. Are you saying that all government spending is misappropriation? If you're saying that a specific kind of government spending I was talking about, I thought was a poor decision of government spending, but it's actually misappropriation, then specify what that thing is. Oh, the penis joke. Okay, well, it's a self-deprecating joke, huh? All right, that's fine. I like the joke. It's a good joke. Sounds like FI polar good awareness. Well, I mean, it really took this inclusion of Wellbutrin to get me to think a little differently. And it is the case that I don't necessarily have to be on Wellbutrin every day for that effect to continue. I probably only need to take it like every other day, maybe. Joking instead of handling any real conversations, me in a nutshell. I tend to be that way when I'm actually talking with people in real life because the reason I like this format is because I get to say all the things out in the audio space, and everybody else gets to say things in the chat, and I can read them and respond to them, and I feel like I'm able to articulate everything I need to articulate without interruption. In other contexts, it's not so easy to do that, and it's not desirable to do that because it's poor social behavior. It's like you're not going to be well liked if you just dominate all the talking all the time. Do you think that correlates in any meaningful way to Enneagram 7? Avoidance. Yeah, I think it does. It's like I'm trying to avoid these negative feelings. So maybe I'm saying I hate myself because I failed to avoid it, you know? Or I'm trying to avoid processing the feeling as something real. So I just decide to hate myself as a way of balancing the scales or something. I don't know. I really don't know because I used to hate myself when at the end of my drinking career with good reason. You know, it's like I was a drunk. I was constantly waking up hungover and wondering how much I embarrassed myself the night before, etc. You know, I had plenty of reason to hate myself. So I used to say these kind of things back then. Shame and anxiety, shame and anxiety. I hate myself. I wish I were dead. I used to say that all the time. But I don't have any cause to be like that now. I'm not doing something I shouldn't be doing. I'm not indulging in a drug I can't handle, you know? So accordingly, I shouldn't be, I don't know why that kind of Tourette's-y verbal habit re-emerged, but I feel better nowadays because I'm on Wellbutrin. Surprisingly good at I just really barely ever do that anymore. I used to say those things, you know, as of like 2 months ago, I was saying those things many, many times a day to myself. It was almost like a mantra. I hate myself. I hate myself. You're horrible, Eric. Eric, you're such a horrible person. And it's like, sometimes it was about something that I did, sometimes maybe even decades ago, like the time I hurt this person's feelings at Meow or something. But if I need to be punished for those things, I have punished myself so much. I surely am punished enough by now. My name is Camden Jared Davis, and Jesus touched me sexually. Now I'm traumatized, so I became a furry homosexual. Furries don't have sex, okay? They're genderless. There are no male and female furries. What gender is Pikachu? Nothing. He's just a Pikachu. We say he because that's his preferred pronoun. Just like Nurse Joy. What is she? She's just like Pikachu. On the other hand, Brock, he's very much like Diddy. He always wants to fuck Nurse Joy. No, he's not like Diddy because, he may be obsessed with sex, but he never actually has it. And he doesn't rape people. So he's not really like Diddy at all. Sorry, dude. I'm sorry I've defamed you like that, Brock. I'm so astonished by your beauty, Nurse Joy. Brock, just get over it already. Nurse Joy doesn't want to bang you. I've seen some really questionable art that says differently about Pikachu. Really? Huh. If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd want to do. If I could save pee in a bottle, the first thing that I'd want to do is fill all these bottles up with my pee and then give all these bottles to you. What am I going to do with all this pee, Eric? I don't know. That's up to you. You can do whatever you want. You've got to do the thug shake. You got to do the thug shake. You got to shake, 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 shake. There you go. Lamb dumpling. That was the thug shake for you. I can also do the gritty if you'd like. I do the gritty. It's one of those. I do the gritty. It's made of columns and rows. I do the gritty. It's a grid, do the gritty. Lose my shipping address if you have it, Eric. I do not have your shipping address now. I don't know who you are, nor do I want to ship you anything. But if I were going to ship you something, maybe I'd ship you a jar of homemade jam. Because I have canning jars like this. I got a whole bunch of them. And they're filled with my special jam. You don't want my pee bottles? Oh. Okay. What if I toss in a Cameron Diaz orgasm candle? Is that who made those orgasm candles? That they supposedly smell like her vagina when she's orgasming? Like, who wants that candle? Can you imagine anybody wanting that candle? It smells like that. Gwyneth Paltrow. It smells like that woman's puss. Why would you want that candle? I don't even know that woman. I have no idea what her puss smells like, but I'm not imagining it's like something I want to smell on a candle, Are you serious, Gwyneth Paltrow? Like, sell your fart in a jar or something. Might as well. You could buy a real Gwyneth Paltrow fart in a jar. I lovingly fart in this artisan jar and then put a farm-to-table lid on it and ship it to you. Just a jar of gefilte fish. Goop. Is Goop the name of her candle? Buy a Goop today. Smells like my puss. Hi, I'm Gwyneth Paltrow. Would you like to smell my puss? Well, you can. Buy this candle today. I took my puss smell and I gave it to the finest smell makers in France. And they crafted this smell and I put it in this candle and now you can smell it all the time. I sat spread-legged while the finest scent makers in France took turns smelling my puss and then smelling the thing they're working on, smelling my puss. It was tiring. But I, Gwyneth Paltrow, I don't want to fork you, Ruben. I'm sorry, I don't. You can jar smoke if you drop a match into it and close the lid once or before the flame burns out. It will also seal it like new. Also, greetings. Hi, Chanel. I did not think it makes sense that you'd be able to jar smoke in that fashion, but that it would seal it like nail. That doesn't necessarily make sense. Oh, I see. Yeah, I got it that you didn't really mean fork. You meant from, but you said fork. So I thought I'd enjoy that opportunity to tease you, and I did. I woke up one day and Diddy spoke to me. He said, "You are now my prophet, and you shall speak for me. Now I ask you to oil up for Diddy." Lamb dumpling. I'm already fully oiled underneath my clothes. From the neck down to my knees, where my pants end, I'm fully oiled up. The reason you can't see it is, yes, Kamala Harris is an ESTJ. The reason you can't see it is because I have saran wrap under here, so it doesn't get wet. Otherwise, all of my clothes would be soaking wet with oil. Mongolian cheese. I don't doubt the Mongolian cheese is excellent, but I'm not looking for a new cheese. Okay? I'm happy with the cheese I currently get. I say, but you don't know unless you try it. I know I'm happy with the cheese I currently get, and I know I don't necessarily want to consider another cheese, potentially change cheeses, or have now 2 cheeses I have to get. That's too bad. Are you looking for that dank shit or nah? I have plenty of it. I am, actually. That's why I'm standing over here. Is I figure I might as well get something done. So I'm going to clip this down and jar it. Because my girl wants to jar it all the time, jar it all the time, jar it all the time. All right, let's jar this. I'll get a jar. All right. So now I'm going to put it in this jar. I bought some empty jars from Amazon. Even though I had a lot of jars, I probably could have made do, maybe with almost just with the jars I had here, but I'm glad well, put it this way. I needed to buy probably only 2 boxes of these jars rather than 3 boxes, but that's okay. I've got some extra jars, whatever. So here's the process of jarring. What you want to do is, first of all, cut these apart so that they're not connected by this green thing. Then you want to pull them off like this. Don't try to pull off the whole bud because you'll end up with a lot of extra stem that you don't need. You pull off the chunks like that. This is really dry because I've been lazy about jarring it. All right, so that one's done. That can go in the trash. The trash is so full I need to take it outside. Now we're going to jar this one. There. We can squeeze more in here. Depends how squished you want it to be, you know. This is different weed here, actually. This weed goes in here. This is Super Skunk. That's Jack Herrera. There. That weed goes in there. Put the lid on there. Now back to the Jack. All right, so we'll put this one in here. And maybe like that one too. That's pretty full. Well, squeeze one more in. Okay. That one is full. So now it goes over here in this box. No Eddie Murphy songs in North Korea. In most Asian countries, people tear red blood. What does that mean? Calvin Pitney says, tell me, have you ever worked a job that was total bullshit, but you kind of liked it? No, the jobs that were total bullshit, I didn't much care for. Like, I had a couple of like telemarketing jobs that were total bullshit. A job that was an easy job that I liked a lot, wasn't bullshit, was working at the deli. Nothing bullshit about that job. It's legit. You know, you're taking orders, giving it to the kitchen, filling orders for olives and shit. And I liked that job a lot. That was maybe my favorite job ever. Although I mean, I enjoyed my work as a debate coach, but it was a lot more, it involved a lot more hard work, responsibility, decision making. I mean, infinitely more, really. So the deli was nice because I didn't have to make any decisions. I just had to do what I was supposed to do. And if it was a lunch rush, time would just fly by. As long as it was super busy, it was just like, next, next, okay, cool, cool, this. I liked it a lot. All right, let's fill up this jar too. Might as well. I'm a racist toast. No, I'm not Casamirian. I'm not a racist toast. Are you? Are you saying you're a racist toast? You're not a host here. I wonder what makes people say random shit like that. This person just got here, knows nothing about me, and wants to make some random claim. I guess just see if it sticks to the wall or something. I don't know. No explaining people and their ways, really. I mean, there is explaining it, but it doesn't do any good to explain it because they're still the way they are. But I mean, personally, I just don't see what the appeal of that would be. Like, why would you want to go in to a random stream and just make random claims that are hopefully provocative in some way? I don't understand the entertainment of that. If I wanted to troll, at least I would come around and troll things the person actually says or be responsive or engaged to what they're doing or something like that. Just roll right in and make a random, completely nonsense claim. But yeah, that's me. Calvin Pitney says, he is indeed a horrible bigot. Can confirm he is alive and well in his seething hatred for mankind. Not true. But I appreciate that at least now Casa Miriam has a partner in her advocacy. It's pretty hard to advocate something if you're the only one advocating it. But if you got two people advocating it, wow, that's a little bit easier to advocate. So congratulations. All right, I got those ones put away. Most of us in Asia don't really know who Eddie Murphy is. Fair enough. Mommy didn't hug them enough. Oh, wait. No, Mommy, no, hug them too much. No, wait, I don't give a fuck. Fair enough. That is totally fair enough. I don't give that many fucks either. I just find it kind of curious, you know. Like Curious George from those books with that guy who enslaved monkeys. All right, that's full. Put that one away. I see people doing lives all the time, but I gotta say, you are the realist. Well, thanks, Calvin Pitney. It is the case that while I'm live streaming, I figure I might as well get house stuff done. So I do some chores, and I think everybody can identify with doing chores. Everybody has to do some chores periodically. Even Jesus, his chore was being crucified. It seems that people do this because they are unhappy with themselves, and the only way to feel anything other than existential dread is to try to bring others down. I mean, does that work? Does it help them to feel better if they succeed in making someone else feel bad? I mean, they're not going to succeed here with me because I'm very practiced in doing this, and they're at an insurmountable disadvantage because I'm the only one in the audio space. But if they did succeed, would it actually make them feel better? It doesn't seem to me it would. I mean, how? I get it, misery loves company. That's true. But it doesn't seem to me that misery is very self-aware in that fashion. Like, People tend to want, I think, their own behaviors that they're questioning as to the wisdom of them. They want those validated by having other people do those same things. But that doesn't really make sense in this context, you know? Can you yell at me not to be miserable, Dad? Stop being miserable, Calvin Pitney. I'm not your dad. We may be non-existing for each other. Can't we just exist? Existential dread is inexisting. I mean, obviously, every well-lived life will have some periods of reflection about dark topics like mortality and transgenerational topics like morality. The former being the thing that causes existential dread, whereas the latter being issues that are central to your self-concept. I guess you could say that way. Lord, oh Lord, will I ever finish jarring all this weed? Do I have an empty jar over here? I probably don't have to open that third box of jars. I'll probably find enough jars. I don't know, maybe there's quite a bit left there. And then there's some in the dining room. And there's no reason not to open it, I guess. It's not like I'm going to return them or anything. And I still have some on the plant outside too, I got to get. That's fine for that one. I can put more in there. This is the problem, is like you get another branch and then you're never done because it never lines up exactly right where you have the jar and at the same time the branch does, you know? Try this. Wait, that's a different kind of weed. Here. I'll get this one. This should fill up the rest of this jar. Then maybe I'll take a little break. How we are existing definitely gives me anxiety. I.e., therefore, I owe Yodi Le'ihu. I don't know what that means. Pro armchair psychologist, by the way. I am, yeah. I'm an armchair philosopher, too. So, this armchair is, in fact, my cockpit. The cockpit of my fighter jet. I fire Sidewinder missiles of truth while defeating the Air Force of ignominy. My ongoing battle against the Air Forces of ignominy. Oh, meow. Here's one of my implements right here. She's called Capillo, my instruments. Philosophic instruments. This is one of my most powerful philosophic instruments right here. Her name is Capillo. It means sweetheart because she's a very sweet kitty. Another one of my philosophical instruments are those two instruments right there. One of them is a bass guitar and one of them is a regular guitar. You're Michelle Obama? Oh, you were flippantly referring to yourself. Okay. Well, you and I can see there being a collegial commonality between us. So I'm going to embrace this notion that you and I are both excellent professional armchair psychologists / philosophers. Reminded me of cute aggression. I remember being a kid and my dog was so cute I just wanted to hug him so hard, but that would obviously kill him, so I never did it. Amazing answers. Did EVH get to want to play guitar or who? Who's EVH? Edward Volson Hillenbrand? I don't know who EVH is. Oh, Eddie Van Halen. Well, Eddie Van Halen had a problem. He had a piece of copper as a pick, and he put it in his mouth a lot, and then he got cancer from the metal but presumably from the metal leaking into his mouth. What is this Gen Z talk? I don't know. Oh, well, maybe you want to play guitar? I always liked music. I was very musical. As a kid, I was in a boys' choir. As a teenager, I started fiddling around with a harmonica, but it had limited ability to do things on that. So eventually, somebody showed me a couple chords on a guitar, and I just started playing it. I just learned chords and you know played around and such. I was never one to really figure out how to play songs that I listened to. Oh, pretty good guess, right? Edvard Wilson Hillenbrand. Yes. Famous EVHs in history. It could have been from the strings because the pick that metal takes the metal off the strings and then the metal from the strings get in your mouth. That's possible too. You're right, Calvin Pitney. I generally speaking, well, I never really play with a pick, but if I were to play with a pick, there are some things that I'd like to be able to play that you can really only play with a pick, or it's pretty hard to play with your fingers. Like it, this Cake song called "No Phone." That's the guitar lick on it. Cake does an excellent job of building songs out of guitar licks. It's not an easy way to do. It couldn't have been from years of smoking, drinking, and alcohol abuse. Well, smoking actually doesn't cause mouth cancer, and neither does alcohol. So smoking doesn't cause mouth or throat cancer, though they used to think it does, but there's not any causal linkage at all. So no, I've never used false fingernails because even though I use my fingers, I don't use my fingernails. In fact, anytime my fingernails are too long that it does catch the string, I cut them. That's usually a problem with my right thumb. I have to keep this trimmed. But I tend to bite these fingernails, so it doesn't really, I don't have to trim them that often. No phone, no phone. I just want to be alone today. And once you start singing that guitar like, but then it gets stuck in your head. We have evolved to breathe smoke in the caves and huts of other structures, thousands and thousands of years of breathing smoke. Okay, well, I agree that human lungs are capable of expelling a certain amount of particulate matter, and that certainly came in handy in the caves when we were inhaling that smoke. But I wonder what the first people did who hadn't evolved that capacity yet with their smoky caves. Ringing, stinging, acting like a nervous bird. I need a plectrum for that. Makes it consistent and combined with the left hand muting staccato. Huh. Well, you know more about picks than I do. I just have never really played with it. I used to try to play sometimes with pick and sometimes not, but very quickly enough, there was nothing I ever played that I played with a pick, and I just lost any capacity to play with a pick at this point. Last time I looked into it, you had to be genetically predisposed to getting lung cancer to be able to get it from smoking, which is how you can have people who smoke for 70 years with no issue. Well, yeah, I mean, when I looked into it, Sean Al, I determined that the chances of getting lung cancer among smokers is 1 in 300. It would make sense that be the case if, in fact, the genetic predisposition to it is 1 in 300 or something. That you have a very high chance of getting it if you smoke it, but if you don't have that disposition, you have a low chance of getting it no matter what. Because the rate of lung cancer in people who don't smoke or have never smoked, in fact, is 1 in 10,000. Anytime someone gets lung cancer and they smoke, the anti-smoking groups will say that lung cancer was caused by smoking. So those stats are heavily skewed, right? Like most of the people who smoked didn't and get lung cancer probably didn't smoke for 50 years, right? They probably smoked for not that long. Or maybe they only smoked a little bit when they were young and stopped smoking and then got lung cancer 15 years later. But they're still going to say that person was a smoker who got lung cancer. So those stats are heavily skewed. And it's probably much more like they're much closer than they say, you know? Well, vaping is better than cigarette smoking because the reason I quit cigarette smoking is because that I could feel my lungs getting cashed. I don't want to get emphysema. Emphysema is a legitimate concern for people who smoke cigarettes. American cigarettes have FSC, fire start control chemicals in them. No, you know, my understanding of it, Calvin, is that they used to have chemicals in them. They kept it burning, even if you didn't drag on it, but they took those chemicals out. If in our groups, smokers have been getting lung cancer more frequently than non-smokers, how would you advise a person on the habit? I mean, I wouldn't ever advise anybody to smoke or not smoke. It's not my business. This is their business what they do with their body. I don't have advice for them. But I would say regarding the risks of it, that smoking is not good for your lungs, and if you smoke enough for long enough, you will eventually get COPD if you live long enough. It may put you at a much higher risk for cancer if, as John L says, you're genetically predisposed to it. But if you're an average person, then your chance of getting lung cancer is, you know, probably less than 1 in 300 if the stats were normalized properly. On the other hand, that doesn't mean there's nothing that they advise against that's not actually bad for you. You should actually not do whippets. Both Rachel and I got permanent nerve damage from doing too many whippets. Rachel got it much worse than me, but I got it too. So believe that. And believe me when I say it's definitely that. I established the linkage experimentally in lots of different ways. I stopped for a long time and then I tried it one more time and it's like once you damage that thing, it doesn't get better again. You can't start doing whippets again. So, don't do galaxy gas, whippets, NOS, nitrous oxide, whatever you want to call it. Don't do that shit. It's not worth it. It's actually bad for you, and you don't have to do it for 50 years to incur the harms. I'm cute. Thanks, NA. You're not applicable. It's because, why am I so cute? It's because I study anime to learn the art of kawaii. And I've got big, cute eyes. Big eyes are cute. Everybody agrees with that. At least the Japanese do. Defined one could criticize the methodology. The conundrum becomes a lack of defining the independent and dependent variables. Well, I mean, I've done my best to parse out all the various studies and stuff on it. And from what I can tell, the worst case scenario is that smokers have about a 1 in 300 chance of getting lung cancer, but that number is probably a lot lower than that because of the skewed statistics based on my meta study. What's my favorite anime? I mean, that's a really tough question. I'm going to say Frieren Journey's End was the best one I've watched in the last couple of years. Last season on Crunchyroll was pretty weak. There wasn't a lot that was worth watching last season. But this season's a little bit better. I like several of the shows this season, but none of them really has made its imprint on me as like, wow, that blows me away. Dan to Dan's pretty fucking good. It reminds me a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen. It does an excellent job of conveying information just with pictures. Dan to Dan. Dan to Dan in the new season. I like that one. It's 4.9 on Crunchyroll. It's DAN. Hi, DDX098. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I am fine. Thank you for asking. We do need to waste some time worrying about what ifs. Like, we need to consider how our short-term behavior is impacting our long-term well-being. And there are some things that are very unhealthy and some things that are kind of unhealthy, right? Like, it's probably a bad idea to get into combat sports for a very long time anyway. Certainly it's a bad idea to get into combat sports and have a good chin, because you're going to get CTE eventually. A high percentage of those combat sports guys end up getting CTE, which is basically brain getting hit in the head, dementia. Dementia caused by getting hit in the head. Just watched this video for you. You watched it for me? Which video did you watch? Jujutsu Kaisen is not a cartoon that's on this season, but it is a cartoon that's very good. Even Rachel is rather partial to that one. It's extremely well drawn. The art in it is fantastic, and the storyline's exciting enough. I tend to be more into anime that are well written in terms of words more. So I really like Free Run Journey's End. I thought that was incredibly well written. I thought the Apothecary Diaries was fantastic. Apothecary Diaries is absolutely fantastic. How do type people? Measurables of cognitive functions. Oh, cool. Thank you for watching that video. I didn't know which video you're talking about, but now I see it's right there in between the two things that I clearly read. Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen is really good. Free Run's Journey End is very much an existential angst kind of thing. You really feel the weight of mortality while watching that cartoon, because the main character of Free Run, she's an elf who's very long lived, like let's say 1,000 years, but her compatriots are humans, and so she's gone. It begins at the end of the lives of the rest of the group of her hero's party, including the hero, the cleric, etc. They're all very old and or have already died, but she's still basically the same age, and she's getting together a new group of young humans to accompany her. It ends up happening that way, a couple people start accompanying her, and she goes on a journey back in time for her. She retraces the steps of her hero's journey with the previous group, and forward in time for the other characters, and then it's about her sort of resolving those two frames of reference in ways that inform her about the unbearable lightness of being, as that one book was titled. I like Promised Neverland. It's one of my favorite recently. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. It's pretty good. I give that a rating of pretty good. Dynamic jaw implants. I don't know what that means. I don't know what dynamic damping jaw implants. I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means, Jeremy FX? Who said it? Did anybody say it? So for anybody here, since we happen to have 37 people here for whatever, probably because of the title, if there's anything you'd like to talk about or me to address, I normally live stream with much fewer people than this here. But the way I typically live stream is by responding to what people say in the chat, read what they say and respond to it. So if you have anything you'd like to talk about, you put it in the chat. I'll share my, I'm sure, very correct thoughts on it. Sometimes my thoughts are, I don't know about that. But in that case, they're still correct because I don't know about that. Shock absorbers for your jaw? Why would you have shock absorbers for your jaw? That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Well, I'm going to put this weed away. Maybe I'll play a song and wrap it up. What am I doing today? I should check my email at some point. I don't like to check my email. I should do it anyway. I learned English just by watching Japanese anime. So you watch dubs? Oh, Karmic Dad, don't watch dubs. Watch subs, man. What are you doing? Don't watch English dubs. English voice actors, American voice actors, people doing voice acting in English, they do not know how to voice act anime. You have to listen to it in Japanese with subtitles in your language. Then maybe you'll learn Japanese. Who knows? But I've learned a lot of Japanese words, but I still can't speak Japanese. Oh, so you can get punched in the face more successfully. I see. You were talking about CTE. Well, I mean, that's kind of what headgear is, right? It's like if you're an amateur fighter, then you fight with headgear on, and it's supposed to absorb some of the blow of getting punched in the face. But it's a strange sport, right? Like, let's have these two guys punch each other in their bodies and face until one of them either gives up or gets knocked out or whatever. It's a really strange thing to make into a sport. Yeah, I know some words and dialogues, right? I can say some things like zanne means too bad. I can say so desu ka, wakata, wakarimashita. Stay shimasu. It's like, excuse me, I'm coming into this room. Takimasu is it's time to eat or thanks for the food or whatever. Arigato gozaimasu. Yeah, I know a lot of Japanese words too. I generally know what they mean, but sometimes I don't even know what they mean. I just know the sound of them. Like, there's a lot of variations of I see or I understand. Like sodeska, wakata, wakarimashita. Those all mean like I see or I understand or whatever. So they have a lot of ways to say that, I guess. But some things they have very few ways to say. Like baka and variations of baka are used to mean all kinds of things from stupid to that's crazy to impossible to I can't believe it. I mean, it's translated into all kinds of different things. And hentai is used for in all different kinds of ways to indicate someone's perverted, something's perverted. Um, you know, they don't make the distinction with the word itself as to whether something's pornography or whether you're a pervert, right? That they use the same word for that. Japanese is not a very big language, from what I can tell. It doesn't have a lot of words. But you learn some interesting things about language development watching it because there are some words that are English words that pop up in Japanese all the time, like timing, nice timing. I don't think Japanese have a word for that before they were introduced to the concept by Americans, like that you have to do something at exactly the right moment or you missed your chance, like that kind of thing. That timing, chance, having a chance. That's a concept that I don't think they had a word for in Japanese because they use it in English all the time. Same with hero. I do watch a shit ton of anime, actually, Karmic Debt. I watch a shit ton. I was watching it earlier today before I started streaming it. What I was doing was watching the most recent Dan to Dan. And when I go to Crunchyroll, I have to check the release calendar because I watched like all their decent back catalog. The Do Over Damsel Conquers the Dragon Emperor, that one's pretty good. I like that one. That one comes out yesterday. I also like this Negative Positive Angler, which is a fishing anime. Whereas one guy, the young guy, has like a gambling problem, but then he meets this group of people who go fishing, and he's kind of like replacing his gambling with fishing. It's a pretty cool cartoon. I like it. And I'll Be a Villainess Who Goes Down in History is a good cartoon. And regarding Zero, Starting Life in Another World Season 3 is fine. It's good. But, it's not my favorite. It's not as good as Tsukamichi Moonlit Fantasy, which it kind of reminds me of. Shangri-La Frontier Season 2 is good. That came out on Sunday. It comes out on Sunday. Tower of God, I'm not even keeping up with. I should. It's like I'm probably a couple episodes behind because it seems to take a long time to accomplish anything narratively. Like in terms of plot. The plot never seems to move forward hardly at all. The overall plot. As a reincarnated aristocrat, I'll use my appraisal skill to rise in the world season 2. This is a nice, fun cartoon. It's like your classic, like OP but super polite child who's really succeeding in extroverted feeling matters. I probably should resume watching MF Ghost season 2. That's, that's a pretty good car racing cartoon. Goodbye Dragon Life. That one's pretty good. It's about this lady who's they call them Lumia. It's like a snake woman. That cartoon is funny because they have in Goodbye Dragon Life, they have cow women, which are basically just hot, big titted women with horns that provide milk for the village out of their breasts. And they have a milk drinking contest. It's a little strange, but it's fine. I understand that if there were cow women in my community, I'd probably drink their milk too. I don't want to lie to myself, you know. If that was the milk that was available, that's what we'd use for cereal, the whole 9 yards. You like isekai only? I mostly like isekai, but I mean, I definitely prefer isekai over other genres in general by a large margin. But because I've exhausted all of the back catalog of Crunchyroll, like every isekai that's ever come out, I've already watched it. So I do I do let my I'll expand my genre interest if something looks really promising. If something's got a really high star rating and it's not exactly my genre, I'll still check it out. Give it a chance. The fishing one, that was pretty good. I do like fishing, so it's fine. But it's like there's an episode waiting for me, and I decided to live stream, so I don't like it that much. If I like a cartoon a shit ton, then I watch it first thing when I get up. If a new episode comes out, I'm like, oh, nothing makes me cry more than anime. So many beautiful stories. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks for being here, everybody. I love you all, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.